President, please be seated. The court is back in session. Now the chamber will hear the sufferings from the civil party. Mr. Sosbon Yamin, now you are allowed to express the sufferings in relation to the crimes alleged against the two accused, Nguyen Chi and Khieu Samphan. And you can also express harm suffered by you during the Democratic Cambodia, resulting in your civil party application to claim collective and moral reparation for physical, material, or mental injuries as direct consequences of those crimes. You may proceed. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honors, everyone in and around the courtroom. As a civil party, after I have told the court of my experience, I am very happy and delighted that the chamber, both national and international judges, understand about the sufferings inflicted upon the Cham people. Now I would like to express my sufferings which was done to me and Cham people, and also my family members. All of us were harmed and hurt by Khmer Rouge. Generally speaking, Khmer people have been mistreated by the Khmer Rouge. Not only my family members were mistreated, but also other families were executed and tortured. They endured the sufferings. They were killed with the back of the hoe, and some other were dragged into the water, and they died. I cannot express everything from my heart. However, I have told the court and I have expressed what I came across during the period. Now I am appealing to this court, the National Court and the International Court, and also UN, United Nations, to stop the regime from controlling the country once again. All religions, including Buddhism and Islam, were abolished. Buddhism is the religion of the nation, and other religions were abolished in the regime. Buddhism was abolished during the time. Monks were deprived, pagodas were destroyed, although Buddhism is the national religion in the country. I don't think I have more to say because I have never been in this court before. It is my first time, and I have told the court so far about what happened to me. My apology, Mr. President. This is what I want to say at the end. President, thank you, Mr. Bunyamin. And I was informed by the senior legal officers that you wish to put questions to the accused through me, the president. Is that correct? Civil party. Yes, in fact, I really want to put some questions to the accused, but I am afraid my question would offend the accused. Mr. President, now you are entitled to put questions to the accused, and you are given opportunity at last to put questions to the accused. But your questions have to go through me as the president of the chamber. You cannot direct the question to the accused by yourself. National Litco lawyers. Mr. President, the questions are written down in the paper before the civil party, so I would like to seek the floor. I would like to ask permission from Mr. President to allow the civil party to read the questions in that paper. Civil party, I have a few questions to put to the accused through Mr. President. Question number one. You two were leaders of the regime. You made people undergo suffering. People were executed and killed. So what were the purpose of your regime? Question number two. Why all religions were abolished, including my religion, Islamic religion? We, Jam people, were persecuted on a permanent basis during that time. President, thank you. The Chamber wishes to inform Mr. Sokpun Yamin that after ascertaining the position of both accused on 8 January 2015 regarding the exercise of the right to remain silent, the Chamber notes that the two accused maintain their expressed position unless and until such time the Chamber is expressly informed otherwise by the co-accused or their counsels. It is therefore incumbent upon them to inform the Chamber in a timely and efficient manner. Should the accused resolve to waive the right to remain silent and be willing to respond to questions by the bench or relevant parties at any stage of the proceedings. As of today, the Chamber is not informed that the co-accused have changed their expressed position and thus agreed to provide their responses to questions. So, there is no regulations or rules allowing the chamber to force the two accused to provide the answers to your questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Sospun Yamin. The hearing of your sufferings, which you stated that you were mistreated during the Democratic Cambodia, come to an end. Your testimony will contribute to the truth. You may not be accused, and you may return to any desired destination or to your residence. I wish you good luck and good health as well as prosperity in your family. Court officer, in collaboration with vessels, please send Mr. Sospunyamin to any desired destination, and also invite 2 TCW 832 into the courtroom. President, good afternoon, Mr. Witness. What is your name? Answer, my name is Seng Kui. President, thank you, Mr. Seng Kui. When were you born? Do you recall it? President, please observe the microphone before you respond. Otherwise, your voice does not go through the microphone for interpreters to interpret into other languages. Answer, I was born on 5th February 1954. Thank you. Question. What is your place of birth and where's your current address? Answer. I was born in Angkor Ban 2 village, Angkor Ban commune, Kong Miet district, Kampong Cham province. And now I am living in Angkor Ban 2 village, Angkor Ban commune, Kong Miet district, Kampong Cham province. What are your parents' names? Answer. My father's name is Bao Seng, alive. My mother's is Yen Alangi, deceased. Question. What about your wife? What is her name and how many children do you have? Answer. My wife's name, my later wife's name is Liang Sok Hieng. My former wife passed away over 13 years ago. And I had 7 children with my previous wife, and with my current wife, I have no additional children. President. According to the report of the greffier, you have no relationship by blood or by law to any of the two accused, that Nguyen Chi and Kieu Sampon, or to any of the civil parties admitted in this case. Is that true? Answer: yes, that is true. I have no relationship by blood or by law to any of the two accused. President, and I was informed as well that you have already taken an oath before the Iron Club statute. Is that correct? Answer: yes, I have already taken an oath. President, now I would like to inform you of your rights before the chamber. Mr. Seng Kui, as a witness in the proceedings before the chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question or to make any comments which may incriminate you. Right against self-incrimination. Your obligations. As a witness in the proceedings before the chamber, you must respond to any questions by the bench or relevant parties, except where your response or comments to those questions may incriminate you, as the chamber has just informed you of your rights as a witness. As a witness, you must tell the truth that you have known, heard, seen, remembered, or experienced or observed directly about an event or occurrence relevant to the questions that the bench or parties pose to you. Mr. Seng Kui, have you ever provided interviews to the investigator of the OCIJ? If so, how many times did they take place and where did they take place? Answer: I have been interviewed twice by the investigator of the OCIJ. Once it was in August 2008 in Angkor Bana Communal Hall, and the second one was in July 2011 at Angkor Bana Commune. President, thank you. Before you appear in the courtroom, have you read the written records of the interviews you gave to investigators to refresh your memory? Answer: I could recall some information in those written records of interviews. President, to your best knowledge, can you confirm whether the written records of the interview are consistent with what you gave to the investigators of the OCIJ 2 times at Angkor Bana Commune Hall? Answer: yes, they are consistent with my responses. President, thank you. In accordance with Rule 91 bis of the internal rules, the trial chamber now gives the floor to the co-prosecutors to put questions to this witness before other party. The combined time for the co-prosecutors and lead co-lawyers is 2 sessions. For the first session, the co-prosecutor and civil party will have time from now until 10 to 3. You may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, judges. Good afternoon, counsel. And good afternoon to everyone in and around the courtroom. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness. Thank you for being with us here today. I'm going to be asking you some questions. My name is Andrew Boyle. I'm an attorney with the Office of the Co-Prosecutors, and then I'll be turning the floor over to my national counterpart, Mr. Seng Liang, to ask you some more questions. You mentioned in answer to a question of the President earlier that you were born in Angkor Ban, number 2 village, in Kangmea district, Angkor Ban commune. Can you tell us, is that where you were living when the Khmer Rouge took control of Angkor Ban commune?
Answer. The current address is where I was living in that period. So I have been living in the same hometown since that time.
Thank you. And can you tell us, when did the Khmer Rouge take control of Angkor Ban commune?
Answer. To my knowledge, they took control from 1976 up to 1979.
I heard, at least in the interpretation, that you said the Khmer Rouge had control of Angkor Ban commune beginning in 1976. Is that correct? Or did they have control of Angkor Ban commune before 1976 at some period as well?
Answer. From 1975, new people had been evacuated from Phnom Penh to my area. So the Khmer Rouge took control of my area from 1975, 76 up to 1979.
Thank you. And before the Khmer Rouge took control of your area, what was your job or what was your position?
Answer. Before Khmer Rouge era, I was simply an ordinary citizen doing rice farming in my own village.
And when the Khmer Rouge took control of your village, did you continue to be a rice farmer, or did your work change?
Answer. After Khmer Rouge came to control my village, I was a slave among other slaves, and I was assigned to ploughing the fields and doing rice farming until the end of the regime.
Can you tell the court what your ethnicity is? Are you Cham or Khmer or some other ethnicity?
Answer. I am Khmer, and my nationality is Khmer.
In 1975, when the Khmer Rouge first took power in your village, were there any Cham in Angkor Ban village number 2?
Answer. Within Angkor Ban village, there were Cham people living in two villages. Angkor Ban village one village, Angkor Ban 3 village. And as for my village, Angkor Ban number 2 village, there were no Cham people living in that village.
And can you tell the court how far and in what direction was Angkor Ban Village 1 from your village, Angkor Ban Village 2?
Answer. Angkor Ban 1 village was adjacent to Angkor Ban 2 village, and they were adjacent villages, and they shared borders.
And how about Angkor Ban Village 3? Does it also share a border with Angkor Ban Village 2?
Answer. Yes, that is right. They shared border with Angkor Ban 2.
And does a common road run between Angkor Ban villages 1, 2, and 3?
Answer. Yes, we had a common road to be used, and there were others secondary roads to different areas within those villages.
Before the Khmer Rouge took control of Angkor Ban commune, did you interact with the Cham that lived in Angkor Ban Village 1 and Angkor Ban Village 3, either through personal connections or business connections or any type of other interaction with the Cham in those communities?
Answer. Prior to Khmer Rouge period, Cham people and I were living in adjacent villages. We did not have a close relationship. However, we traveled past each other villages. In that period, Cham people were fish folks, and for me, I was a rice farmer, so I did not have a close relationship with the Cham people during the time.
Thank you. I'd like to ask you now about some more general questions about the Cham in the adjacent villages to your village. In the period before the Khmer Rouge took power in Angkor Ban commune, can you tell us, are you aware of what religion the Cham practiced at that period?
Answer. To my knowledge, when Khmer Rouge came to control the country or my area, Cham people did not practice their religion because they were afraid of the Khmer Rouge. And after Khmer Rouge had taken control of the area, Cham people were merged with Khmer people traditional clothes religions were abolished at that time, and they were turned into Khmer people.
Thank you, and we'll be getting to some of those changes in a little bit. But first, I'd like to focus on the Cham before the Khmer Rouge arrived. Did you know what religion the Cham practiced?
Answer. Before Khmer Rouge came to control the country, Jam people practice Islam, and they believe in Muhammad's religion.
Was there a mosque located somewhere in Angkor Ban commune where the Cham could pray?
Yes, there was a large mosque for them to congregate.
And did the Cham wear clothes that were different from the clothes that the Khmer would wear?
Yes, they wore clothes according to their tradition, which was distinct from our Khmer clothes.
And can you tell us what were some of the distinct clothes that the men and the women who were Cham would wear?
I know about the dress because Cham people usually wear their sarong and long draped like a robe or clothes. And as for the Cham women, they wore their long, distinct robe, and it was long that it touches the ground.
Was the Cham women's hair any different from Khmer women's haircuts?
As for the hair feature, they actually maintain long hair. However, the hair usually hidden in their head scarf.
Did the Cham speak a language that was distinct from the Khmer language?
Yes, Cham people speak their own language, which was distinct from the Khmer language.
And did the Cham eat any foods that were different from the Khmer, or not eat any foods that Khmer people would eat?
Cham people eat rather differently from the Khmer people. In particularly, they do not eat pork at all. As for fish and pork, they do consume it, but the pork is totally banned by its religion.
Now, moving to the period after the Khmer Rouge took control of Angkor Ban commune. At that time, after the Khmer Rouge had arrived, did you have an opportunity to see how the Cham in Angkor Ban villages 1, and 3 were treated.
At that time, the Cham people living in the two villages had mostly been evacuated to other areas where I did not know, and there were not many Cham families still living in the villages.
During the Khmer Rouge period, were Cham ever transferred into your village, that is, into Angkor Ban village number 2?
From starting from late 1976, Cham people had been transferred to live in my village. And according to my understanding, there were about 15 Cham families, but they were not Cham from village 1 and village 3. They were evacuated from elsewhere.
And can you estimate in these approximately 15 Cham families, how many people are we talking about when you say 15 Cham families?
My apology, I made a mistake. In fact, I refer to the number of persons, about 15 to 16 persons, Cham people, and they were from about 5 to 6 families, and the total number of them were about 15 or 16.
And I heard you say that they were not transferred from the adjacent villages, but do you know where they were transferred from?
I do not know where they were evacuated from. Suddenly, I saw them evacuated to my village and worked in the rice fields with my villagers.
The Cham that were transferred into your village, were they men and women, or just men, or just women?
Initially, they came as families, I mean, so the parents and the children together.
I heard you say initially they came as families. Why did you say initially? Did they not remain as families after that?
Later on, the husbands were transferred to work elsewhere, and I only saw the wives and the children remained. That's why I said initially they were as a family. And that happened a few months after they arrived in the village.
You just mentioned children. How old were the children that were transferred into your village with these families?
The age varied. Some were 55 to 6 years old, while others were around 10 years old.
After the men were transferred out of the village, how many Cham persons remained in your village? Essentially, how many women and children Cham remained in your village?
There were between 10 to 15.
I just want to clarify for the record, I believe I heard you say before that there were about 15 to 16 Cham total transferred into your village, and the men were later transferred out, and that left 10 to 15 women and children Cham in your village. So I just want to make sure that what you're saying is somewhere perhaps between 5 Cham men were transferred out of the village. Is that correct?
They were a bit less because in some families only the wife and the children arrived and not the husband. So maybe there were only 3 or 4 male Chams who were sent away elsewhere.
And when the Cham arrived in your village, how did you know that they were Cham?
Because I know the distinction between the Khmer and the Cham people, it was apparent from the way they dressed and from the way they behaved. I myself was born near the Cham village. And when they initially arrived in my village, they secretly spoke Cham to one another.
So you were able to identify them as Cham in part because you heard them speaking Cham secretly to one another. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
You also mentioned that they had distinctive dress. Am I to understand that when they arrived in your village in 1976, they were wearing distinctive Cham dress at that time?
When they arrived to live in my village, they no longer wore their distinctive dress. They had to wear the dress that the Khmer people wore, and they did not speak the Cham language anymore. They started speaking the Khmer language.
Thank you. Can you tell us, at the time that the Cham were transferred into your village, how many people total lived in Angkor Ban Village 2, approximately?
To my knowledge, the total number of them was between 15 to 16.
I apologize, my question probably wasn't very clear. I'm talking about the total number of people in Angkor Ban Village number 2, both Khmer and Cham. How many people were there in the village at that time that the Cham were transferred into it in 1976?
I can only provide you an estimate as I did not have anything involved with the census. And I observed that while we had our communal eating, and also based on the number of houses, I could say that the total number of people, that is both the combined number of the Khmer and the Cham people, were between 600 to 700.
And during the period that the Cham were in your village, did you have a chance to observe them? And did you have a chance to talk with them at any point?
No, I did not have any chance to chit-chat with them. During the Khmer rules, early in the morning, I was assigned to plow the rice field, and the only time I met them was at the communal dining, and we were not allowed to chit-chat. And by the time we had our dinner, it was around 6 or 7 p.m., and we did not have any chance to talk to one another.
As far as you were able to ascertain, were the Cham allowed to practice their religion while they were living in Angkor Ban, village number 2?
No, it was not allowed. There was no sacred place for the Cham people to worship or to pray. And they were placed under the same condition as that imposed on the Khmer people in terms of the way of living and working.
And you already mentioned that they were not allowed to wear their traditional clothes. Were the Cham women allowed to continue to have long hair at that time?
To me, I did not see any band on the hair. However, I observed some Cham people had short haircut, while others still had a long one.
You already mentioned that the Cham were required to speak their language secretly. If they weren't speaking their own language, were they speaking in Khmer?
It was imperative for them to speak the Khmer language. They actually secretly spoke the Cham language to one another at the beginning of their arrival, and after that the Cham language was completely banned and they had to speak the Khmer language.
Did they speak the Khmer language well?
No, they spoke the Khmer language with accent.
And you mentioned that they were that the speaking of the Cham language was completely banned at some point after their arrival in Angkor Ban, Village 2. Do you know how that instruction was conveyed that the speaking of the Cham language was completely banned at that point?
I did not see anyone impose such a restriction. However, the Cham people themselves decided not to speak the Cham language anymore, and they have to make themselves speak the Khmer language as they were afraid of being punished for speaking the Cham language. Or if there was a restriction on the Cham language, I was not aware of that.
The prohibitions that you've mentioned on practicing Islam, on wearing traditional dress, do you know how the Khmer Rouge enforced these prohibitions? Or why the Cham complied with these prohibitions?
I am not sure regarding this matter. What I know is that for the Cham people who were evacuated to live in my village, they no longer wore the distinct Cham dress, but instead they wore the Khmer dress or clothes.
Thank you. Did you ever see any arrests of Cham in your village?
Yes, I did. I witnessed it with my own eyes. In around 1977, and at around 8 o'clock at night, the Cham and the Khmer people just returned from the rice field, and we actually ate dinner together at the communal dining hall. That very night, the security force came to arrest the Cham people. They did not arrest only one person, but they arrested all the Cham people living in village number 2, and the arrest took place at the dining hall where they were having dinner together with the Khmer people. And I was there having my dinner in that communal dining hall.
And I'm going to ask you some questions about the details of that arrest. But first, I want to ask, was that the only arrest that you saw of the Cham in your village, or were there other occasions where you also saw arrests of Cham?
That was the only occasion that I saw the Cham people being arrested.
And can you tell us, you just stated that the arrest that took place at that point in 1977 was all of the Cham people in your village at that time. Am I to understand that that means that from your previous testimony, there was an arrest of about 15 women and children at that time?
It is my understanding that the Cham people were not aware of the plan to arrest them. They were having dinner, and suddenly the security force came to arrest them.
The Cham that were arrested after or while they were having dinner, Was it comprised of women and children, the women and children that you mentioned earlier?
បាទ
Yes, it was mixed. There were women and there were male and female children.
And is it correct that there would have been somewhere between 10 and 15 women and children arrested at this time?
Yes, that was about right.
And all of the Cham in your village were arrested at that time. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Can you tell us who were the security forces that you mentioned were carrying out these arrests?
The security forces that arrested the Cham people belong to the commune.
សន្តិសុខឃុំ
Do you remember the names of any of the security forces that were carrying out the arrests?
I recall a person by the name of Run.
And can you tell us who was Run?
Run held a position within the commune security forces. That's what he was known at the time.
And do you know what position he held?
I heard from other people that he was in charge of the communal security forces, and he had 3 or 4 men subordinated to him, and they came with him at that time.
And did you hear anything else about Run as a person or as the chief of the commune security?
I also heard that Run was in charge of the overall security force in the Ban commune, and he was in charge of conducting the arrest throughout the entire commune.
Were you afraid of Run at that time?
At that time, not only me who was afraid of him, but also other people. When we saw him coming, everybody was shaking. He was so powerful, and everybody was afraid of him.
Can you describe, in addition to him being very powerful, why you were afraid of him?
To my knowledge, every time he made his presence known, it means that he came to arrest people and took them away and killed them without questions being asked. That was the reason people was so afraid of him.
Do you know where Run came from?
Ron came from village Angkor Ban number 7, one of the villages in the Angkor Ban commune. And prior to him becoming the commune security, he was a former Khmer Rouge soldier.
Did you ever hear any nicknames or aliases for Run that people would use?
Answer. It was only Run that was used at the time.
Mr. Witness, I'd like to read to you a section of your written record of interview to point you to a description you provided earlier and to try to get some more information from you about that description. This is at E3/5301, English ERN 002-10483, Khmer 006-35169, and French 006-22401. And this is what you said, quote, "I have heard Run referred to as a butcher. He was called this because he arrested people in the village and commune. Run was in charge of security for all of the villages in this commune, so people were afraid of him and would shake when they would see him. At that time, we dared not talk about him. After the fall of the regime, people said he used to arrest people in the areas east and west of the river. This was at the site of a bridge in Angkor Ban commune," close quote. Is it correct, as you stated, that you heard Run referred to as a butcher? And if it is correct, can you tell us what you understood that to mean?
Answer. I heard people call Run a butcher or an executioner because he was the one who killed people.
Do you have any knowledge of what happened to Run after the Khmer Rouge lost power in your commune?
Answer. After Pol Pot regime was defeated in 1979, the individual by the name Run was chopped to death by people at Angkor Ban stream. People were angry with Ron because during Pol Pot time he was the one who had arrested family members or relatives of villagers. For this reason, after the end of the regime, he was arrested and chopped to death by people.
Going back to the arrest of the Cham on that evening in 1977 in your village, were you ever told why the Cham were being arrested on that evening by Run and the other security forces?
Answer. I was not told of the reason. I did not know at that time, and I noticed that they came to arrest Cham people. on that night.
When the Cham were arrested, were they tied or bound in any way?
Answer. Their hands were tied to their back. Yes, their hands were tied to a string, and as for children, young children, their hands were not tied. 4 or 3 years old children.
And after the Cham, except for the young children, were tied up, what happened to the Cham? What did they do with the Cham next?
Answer. Chief, village chiefs, village chief and deputy chief of Uncle Ban to village ordered us to ride those Cham people on ox carts to pagoda, to a pagoda at 9 p.m.
And were you ordered to participate in this event in any way?
Answer. No, I was not engaged in arresting people.
I apologize, Mr. Witness. I didn't mean to imply that you were engaged in arresting people. My question was in relation to the ox carts. Were you ordered by the village chief to participate in transporting the Cham by ox cart?
Answer. The deputy chief of the village, who was also chief of a unit, ordered me to transport Cham people by an ox cart together with other Cham people who were on other ox carts. I was the one who received an order to ride those Cham people on an ox cart.
And did you have a choice? Did you feel that you had a choice to refuse this order to drive the Cham on the ox cart?
Answer. I did not dare to refuse the assignment. If I had refused, I would have been taken away and killed together with Cham people. They issued an order to me and I had to follow it.
I understand. Can you tell us how many ox carts were used to transport the Cham people?
Answer. To my knowledge, there were 5 or 6 ox carts were used at the time. It was it happened during the night time. It was so dark and I did not care to count how many ox carts were used at that time. I was following the other ox carts which were in front of me during that night.
And where did you transport the Cham to at that time?
Answer. They were transported from the kitchen hall in my village and they were transferred to Otakuan Pagoda.
And how did you know to transfer them to Otrakun Pagoda? Who told you where to transfer them to?
Answer: I was told by the deputy chief, the chief of the village, and also deputy chief of the unit that I had to transport those Cham people to Otrakun Pagoda. Uh, the this is the information that I learned from.
Can you tell us the name of the deputy chief of the village or the deputy chief of the unit?
Answer: his name was On, who told me. On received an order from Urun. There was an order from Urun, and this order went through a deputy unit or chief. On was actually a kind person, and the villagers love and like this individual. However, because of an order from Rund, he has to follow that order.
Can you tell us how far was it from Angkor Ban Village 2 to Wat Otrakun?
Answer: during the transportation, we did not drop them off inside the pagoda. We dropped those Cham people at the pagoda's gates, and the distance from the village to that gates was about 3 kilometers away, or over 3 kilometers away. This is my estimate.
So to travel those 3 kilometers, how long did that take, and what time did you arrive approximately at the gate of Wat Otrakun?
Answer: we arrived at the gate of the pagoda at around 9 p.m. because we could drive the ox carts very slowly on that road.
And did the security personnel who participated in the arrests or any other security personnel travel with you to the pagoda?
Answer: no, not on my ox cart. I do not know about other ox carts, and from my recollection, no, he was not with us.
Did the Cham that you were transporting on your ox cart, did you hear them say anything or make any other noises during your trip from the village to the pagoda?
Answer: during the trip, I had to transport 3 Cham people, one mother, 2 children. They sat quietly, and I had to drive the ox cart as fast as I could in order to reach the destination.
Was there anyone at the gate of the pagoda waiting when you arrived there?
Answer: The distance from the gate of the pagoda to the compound of the pagoda was about 700 meters. There was one person who had been there already. He was waiting to receive Cham people. He was perhaps the security guard at the district level who was there to receive Cham people.
And did that person say anything when you arrived at the gate in your ox cart?
Answer. That person only said that we all could return back home after we dropped the Cham people.
And so did the Cham people get off of your ox cart and off of the other ox carts when you reached the gate to the pagoda?
Yes.
And did you see where the Cham were going when you dropped them off at the gate of the pagoda?
Answer. Immediately after they got off the ox carts, they were led into the compound of Otakun Pagoda, and we, the drivers of the ox carts, returned back home.
Following your depositing of the Cham at the gate of the pagoda and watching them enter the pagoda, did you ever see any of the Cham that were arrested that night again?
Answer. Since that time, I have never seen them back. I mean, those Cham people who had been living in the same village as me, I have never seen even a single one.
Did you ever learn anything about what happened to people who were arrested and sent to Wat O Chakon Pagoda?
President, please hold on, Mr. Winner. You may now proceed, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. One observation and one objection. The observation is that I'm not quite sure if I understand the microscopical level of questioning. We are talking about 1 hour of somebody who brought Cham to a security center. However, having said that, I think prosecution is now asking for speculation. He clearly says that he dropped off the Cham, never saw them again. So whatever he's saying now about what happened is asking for speculation.
Mr. President, just to respond briefly, it's true that he said that he doesn't know what happened to the Cham. A close observer of my question would realize that I was asking in the second question about if he learned anything about anyone who was arrested and sent to that security center, and so it's an entirely different question.
President, the objection by the defense counsel is overruled. The chamber needs to hear the response to the question put by the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor. Mr. Winner, you are instructed to give the response to the last question put by Co-Prosecutor.
I'll repeat the question. Did you ever learn anything about what happened to people who were arrested and sent to Wat O Trakon Pagoda during the Khmer Rouge period?
Answer. Regarding the arrest of Cham people, all I know is that in 1977, the arrests and purges were conducted in a widespread manner throughout the country. That is all I know. President, it is now time for a short break. The chamber will take a break from now until 3 o'clock. Court officer, please find a proper waiting room for this witness during the break time, and please invite him back into the witness stand in the courtroom at 3 p.m. The court is now in recess.